Hey everyone, Nidstang here. 2016 has finally come to a close. It's been a big year with a lot of highs and lows in the industry, and like every year there have been a lot of game releases. Some really great games, some really bad games, some really disappointing ones. Some of those disappointments are probably the biggest gaming letdowns in recent years, but I also felt like a lot of really great games came out this year than in the last couple. It was really hard for me to finalize my ranking this year. Like I said, there were a lot of great games, but I've narrowed it down to 5. Before you freak out, this isn't an objective list. This is just what I thought were the best 5 games from this year. My criteria isn't an exact science, but what I really look for in a game is that it is fun and engaging, especially in the gameplay. If a game keeps me coming back, there's a good chance I think highly of it. Engaging and interesting story and pleasing graphics are just icing on the cake. And if you still think I missed something that I should have mentioned, there were a bunch of games that came out this year and a bunch that I wanted to play but just didn't have the time to get to. So now that I'm done wasting enough of your time, let's jump into the top 5 games of 2016. Azure Striker Gunvolt 2 is the sequel to the first Azure Striker. Obviously, thus the 2. I was really excited for this game since I loved the first one. The sequel doesn't disappoint. The game takes place a few years after the first one. Gunvolt has successfully left the terrorist organization Quill and now basically acts as a sort of mercenary adept freedom fighter. He's investigating a new organization, the enemy Eden, and their new plan, Project Muse. Eden splits Jewel, the adept girl from the first game, into multiple shards, and it's up to Gunvolt to rescue the shards and Jewel. It's a fast-paced and action-packed game, and still maintains that Mega Man Zero vibe that the first one had. This time around, the game is fully voice-acted, which is a positive and negative, because the fight scenes have those distracting text boxes that I mentioned in the review for the first game, but it doesn't detract too much, and you have the option to turn them off if need be. Gunvolt's rival Kopin also makes a return, but this time he's a playable character. Both characters have their own set of levels and bosses, as well as unique playstyles, weapons, and abilities. And, like in the first game, the music is pretty great too. If you're a fan of the Mega Man franchise, and Mighty No. 9 was a disappointment to you, and you have a 3DS, give Azure Striker Gunvolt 2 a playthrough. Another sequel. The Project Cross Zone series is actually a spin-off sequel series from the PS2 Namco Cross Capcom game. The Project Cross Zone games are giant crossover tactical JRPGs. The biggest draw is the large character roster pulling from various Capcom, Namco, Sega, and Bandai games like Street Fighter, Tekken, Darkstalkers, Resident Evil, Dot Hack, Sakura Wars, Star Gladiators, Strider, Xenosaga, Soul Calibur, Phoenix Wright, Resonance of Fate, and Mega Man, amongst many others. Nintendo also joined the fray for this one, adding Lucina and Chrom from Fire Emblem and Fiora from Xenoblade Chronicles. The gameplay is fairly unique. There are 2 types of playable characters, group units, which have 2 characters fighting together, and a solo unit, which are added to a group and act as a support character. Each level takes place on a grid, and you have to fight through hordes of enemies using various attacks, assists, and special moves. You also have a crossover hold, which increases your special meter when using assists alongside main attacks. The story is pretty outlandish and a little hard to follow, partially due to the game not giving the player any information as to what is going on early on, but the plot really isn't the point of these games. The only real negative is that unless you really like the characters and jive with the combat gameplay, I can see someone getting bored with the game because there isn't really variation to this game at all, and every level plays basically the same. Personally though, my biggest complaint is that some of the characters from the first game didn't return, like me or Tronbon, but there's enough new characters to make up for it. Despite how repetitive and disjointed the story is, it's still a really fun and flashy RPG with a lot of my favorite characters from gaming, and I really enjoyed it. You knew this was going to be on the list, right? The game honestly took me by surprise. I was very hesitant to purchase the game, and I didn't end up buying it until around October. As someone who used to play a lot of Dota 2, I thought Overwatch should have been a free-to-play game with the same model as Dota 2, and I also played the open beta and was disappointed to learn that the base game was going to be identical to that. But I regret waiting. I missed the Season 1 comp and the majority of Season 2, but Overwatch has quickly become one of my most played games of the year. I lose track of time and spend hours on it pretty much every day. The main game is incredibly fun, even if it becomes frustrating when you keep losing. It requires a lot of teamwork and understanding of how each of the heroes work together, and it creates some really intense moments. The cast of characters are all fun and unique and have their own personality, which makes them all fun to play. The arcade mode is great, especially the 1v1 and 3v3 elimination style modes, and the brawls are all pretty cool and interesting too, and they add some needed variation to the game. The holiday events are especially fun. I'd love to see some more co-op brawls in the future, whether they are horde defense type modes or even fully fleshed out mini story missions. The only negative I have with the game is that there is no story mode. The backstory that has been presented in the animation shorts, the already fleshed out characters, and Blizzard's track record of creating some really great lore-driven games would have resulted in a cool story experience, I feel. The lack of story mode also turns people off who may not be super into competitive-only games, especially with how competitive and sometimes toxic the Overwatch community can be. But if you are a fan of multiplayer shooters and like games with unique heroes and abilities, Overwatch is the game for you. Kirby games are pretty much my favorite games behind the Mega Man games. Still, while I really enjoyed Return to Dreamland and Triple Deluxe, there hasn't been a Kirby game to hit the levels of greatness that Superstar and especially Kirby's Adventure have for me, which I think Kirby's Adventure is the best Kirby game. But Planet Robobot hits that level. I honestly think that Planet Robobot is the best Kirby game since Kirby's Adventure. Robobot finds Kirby fighting an alien invasion and their mech war machines as they attack Dreamland. The level design is neat and actually challenging for a Kirby game. The graphics are nice, and the game utilizes the 3D background plane efficiently for puzzle solving and enemy and trap placement. There's some good twists on classic enemies and bosses, both in terms of their designs and their attacks. The best part of the game is the mech mechanic though. The mech is only present in certain parts of certain levels, and while it enhances the game, it doesn't take away from what makes Kirby, Kirby. The mech has a copy ability, which basically results in super powerful attacks that could be used to destroy enemies or break apart the environment to solve puzzles and find collectibles. The new powers are all really cool. I especially like the Smash Bros. Power, which gives Kirby a moveset similar to that in the Smash Bros. Games, and the amiibo support is pretty cool too. Seriously, if you are even the slightest Kirby fan, buy it, because you won't be disappointed. Does this come as a surprise to anybody? I haven't shut up about this game since it's come out. We actually did a full review for the new Doom as our very first Under the Bun episode. The Doom reboot is everything I wanted it to be, and it keeps getting better with the free updates and expansions it has been releasing. It's fast, it's visceral, it's violent, it's gory, it's motherfucking Doom. It has an incredibly heavy as fuck metal soundtrack which adds to the overall brutality and complements the violence perfectly. The game actually won Best Soundtrack and Sound Design at the VGAs, and I wholeheartedly agree. It's fantastic, and the live performance at the VGAs was amazing as well, and you should go watch it. The arcade mode is a new addition since we have reviewed the game, and it's pretty sweet. You play through specific levels in the game with a fully upgraded suit and upgraded guns with limited lives as you fight through the level for points and attempt to get a high score. It adds a lot of replay value to a game that was already incredible and had a lot of replay value. The only negative keeping it from being a perfect game is the multiplayer, because it was a little controversial in that it isn't a straight up arena shooter, but rather a hybrid with arena elements and modern shooter elements, and because the multiplayer is pretty dead already. It takes me a very long time to find matches, and I haven't been able to find a full lobby in like a month. Sometimes I have to wait upwards of 10 minutes to find a match of like 5 people. And the only people who still play this a lot are pros, so there's a good chance that you'll get dominated every match. Still, Doom's single-player experience makes up for all of that by creating not only the best shooter of the year, but the best game of the year, and arguably the best game under Bethesda's umbrella, and one of the best shooters and games that I have played in a really long time. I can't speak highly enough for the new Doom. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video. If not, tell me why. If you did, please comment what your favorite video game from this year was below. Please like and subscribe if that's your thing, and tell your friends about us. I'm looking forward to what 2017 holds for Under the Bun, and there are a lot of great looking games coming out. I am especially looking forward to Cuphead and Yooka-Laylee, and I am stoked to talk about them. Hopefully you stick with us. Until next time.